Now, there are a lot of things that I like besides anime, Star Wars, NASCAR. I've talked about all of them before. One of the most recent things that I have started to get into that I think is really interesting is Godzilla. I was never a Godzilla fan. I was kind of like one of them that was like, it's out there. I don't really watch it, but it was something that I knew existed. And as I have gotten older, it became more and more interesting to me, especially with the legendary films. I've actually started going through all of the Godzilla movies and trying to watch them. With that, I came to a kind of crossroads with two of my kind of things I'm into, with anime and Godzilla, because they made a Godzilla anime trilogy. And you'd think that that would be the coolest thing ever. Like, you cannot mess that up. Somehow, they did. So today I'm going to go over kind of my brief thoughts on this anime trilogy because I have more thoughts on it than I am making a Godzilla video going over every Godzilla movie, kind of my thoughts on all of them, but that's for the future. And I'm going to have just brief thoughts on every movie in that video. In this video, I want to talk more about this anime trilogy and how it just failed in almost every way, and how it could have been something amazing. Now, real quick, this is a spoiler video. I'm going to pretty much spoil all three films. So if you have not watched them, honestly, don't go watch other Godzilla movies. If you're a Godzilla fan, you've probably already watched them because you're like me and you thought, Godzilla anime, that's got to be amazing. Or you're like, I haven't really watched that many Godzilla movies. I should go watch a Godzilla movie. Don't watch the Godzilla anime trilogy. Watch -1, watch Shin Godzilla, watch 1954 Godzilla. Any of those are better. So the first film is Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. Now this is a really interesting concept for Godzilla because the world that we are introduced to is that this is a Godzilla that has won. He beat the humans. The humans lost. And now they have gone out into space. And it has been a period of time. But this generation has gone far enough into space that time has changed. And that time works differently in space versus we're on Earth. And so what we get is that while the humans have only been gone for a couple decades, on Earth, we have gone 10,000s of years. I don't remember, is it 10,000 or 20,000? I think it's 20,000 years is how far we've gone. Either way, 10,000, 20,000, it's been thousands of years. So this means that not only has Godzilla changed, but Earth itself has changed. And Earth itself is now pretty much became Godzilla. The vegetation is kind of taking this Godzilla form now. The creatures on it are kind of like Godzilla. So it's really this interesting idea that if we left Godzilla alone, that this would happen. That is incredibly interesting because not only are we looking at this idea that, for one, Godzilla wins and humans have to completely abandon Earth, that's interesting on its own, but the idea of what a Godzilla unchecked could do long term. Now from here we're introduced to all of our main cast here, and this is really, I'm going to talk more about this in the next two, but in this first one, really all you need to know is that we have this main little group of characters here, and the main character is really, to be honest, so insufferable. Like, I'm okay with characters that are kind of like annoying or they're a bit over the top, but then as you progress through the story, you start to understand them. You start to, realize their motivations, or they will change and they will start to realize that their singular outlook on life, they begin to see more, there's more to life. There's more to the situation that I'm dealing with. This guy, he does, but in the worst ways possible. We'll get to that. So anyway, we are back, and we have our main character here, who his parents were killed in the original Godzilla attack. So he is able to escape Earth, and he now is in a huge revenge quest. He wants to go get Godzilla. But that's nothing new. I mean, there's characters that do that, and all the Godzilla movies where they kind of get upset, and then they want to go, get revenge on Godzilla. The problem is that the way this movie starts is time has already changed. We see the event happen to where his parents are killed, but it's so quick that you never really, and he's already acting insufferable by the time we meet him very quickly in the film, to where you're already like, I've not seen Godzilla in action, so I don't care. I get that he did this. You can tell me he did this stuff and show me a brief 5-second clip of buses getting blown up, but I never saw your parents. I don't know the good things they did. So to me, who cares? There's also a girl that he likes, or she likes him. I don't think he likes her. I don't think he doesn't really even acknowledge her for like 90% of this trilogy, to be honest. He just doesn't. There's also 2 alien races of people that we're going to talk about more, but they're not really important for this film. So just keep that in mind. They came to Earth right whenever Godzilla started attacking, and they helped them get off the planet. Once again, this is all set up before we even start the movie, and it's like, get up to date. So anyway, the people in the space thing, they decide that they need to go back to Earth. They're going to go check on Earth and see if Godzilla is still there. So they do. They go back to Earth, and when we get there, we find out that all this stuff has changed with Earth. It is now more of a Godzilla Earth than it is Earth. When we get here, we have our crew, our main characters, our main cast, that they land on Earth, and they're going to go investigate. And they find Godzilla. Kind of. So they find a Godzilla, and it's a smaller Godzilla, about the same size that he was whenever we met him in the beginning. So 20,000 years, Godzilla really hasn't changed any. So we had this whole movie, and I'm not going to talk a lot about this because really this first movie is not bad. It's probably I'm going to be honest, it's probably the best one out of all 3 of them. We have this fight with Godzilla, and it's a good fight, to where we are kind of getting this, how we're going to beat Godzilla, and it works. It's interesting. But then we get to the end of the film, and we are revealed that they defeat Godzilla. But then it's revealed that the Godzilla that was defeated here is not actually the Godzilla. It is a smaller version of Godzilla. So this is like a really interesting idea, to where it's like, oh my gosh, there's tiny Godzillas and a massive Godzilla. What's going to be for the future? Is the next movie, are we going to have a bunch of baby Godzillas and then this big Godzilla? No. We never, ever will see a smaller Godzilla again. It was the one baby Godzilla, and the big Godzilla, nothing else. Never again will we talk about the baby Godzilla. Will they even mention it? Will they be like, hey, if we defeat this big Godzilla, what happens to all the baby Godzillas that might be running around this planet? They never mention it. They just act like, oh, well, we defeated the one, so obviously we can defeat them all. Okay, but, how? What if there's thousands of these things? It's been 20,000 years. Do you expect them all to just be the exact same as that first one? It's like they introduce these concepts and have no idea on what to do with them. And once they get done with that concept and they're bored of it, and when it's time to move on to the next film, they completely forget about it. And when they do remember it, which we'll get to, they remember it in the worst way possible. But anyway, let's move on. So after the first Godzilla is defeated and the big Godzilla comes out, we are introduced to movie 2. And movie 2 is I don't want to say it's the worst one, because it's interesting on what the concept of it is. Now, there's parts of it I don't like, but we'll get there. So, Godzilla Anime Trilogy 2, City on the Edge of Battle. So this is where we get Mecha Godzilla. So we get introduced to a few different like races in this film. We have like the monks, like Catholic priest, and they're the ones that went with them on the ship. We also have like these burly kind of uh, dark-skinned characters. They are another group of characters. They also went with them on the ship, but those characters were making Mechagodzilla. And when we get Mechagodzilla, it is a really interesting thing because Mechagodzilla, in my opinion, is probably one of the top three most interesting like opponents for Godzilla. And so whenever I'm like, oh, Mechagodzilla, that's going to be really cool. No. But we're teased that in the first film because we get a bit of like, hey, they were building Mechagodzilla and Godzilla just showed up too quick. We didn't have time to finish him. And they used this like nano metal. And this nano metal is like, it's like a liquid metal. And they never really explain like how it works, where exactly it came from. Like they just say, oh yeah, we came up with it. Okay, okay. They they're like, all right, we got to do something about this big Godzilla now. So they go to the old Mecha Godzilla factory where they were building Mecha Godzilla. And they're like, oh, it's still here. And it's turned into a city because the nanometal has built the city on its own. Okay. Um, a few questions there. One, this stuff has been here for 20,000 years. Number one, um, why did it never, like, obviously, it has some sort of sentience because it decided to build the city. Like, they didn't program it to do that, or if they didn't explain that they programmed it to do that. So it did that on its own. Why did it never decide to try to make a massive creature? Or why did it never decide, I'm going to kill Godzilla myself? It never did that. And really, it should have, because that was its whole goal, was to kill Godzilla. But it just decides, I want to make a city. Why? And it's giving off this gas that is supposed to, like, make Godzilla not see it. You're telling me that Godzilla just never walked that way? It's been 20,000 years. Surely, this is my problem with some of the Godzilla movies, especially these, is that they kind of make Godzilla out to be dumb. I don't want Godzilla to be dumb. Godzilla should be a very smart creature. The problem with Godzilla and what his downfall usually is, especially in the humans versus Godzilla movies, is like rage, and he just is very vengeful, and they're able to outsmart him because they are more cunning. This movie just makes it seem like Godzilla is just dumb. I don't like it. We also meet in this movie a third race. And this race is a group of like tribal people that are, we're told that they come from bugs. Okay. Now, like I said, the burly guys, the dark skinned guys, obviously they're connected to Mechagodzilla. The holy monk people, obviously, they are connected to another monster we'll talk about in a minute. And then these native people, they are obviously talked about in a way that makes you think they are connected to Mothra. Great. We get a little bit of payoff for Mechagodzilla and for the other one, which we'll get there. And we never really get payoff for Mothra. Like, kind of, but not really. I don't know. I feel like they wanted to do more, but they were like, we don't got time. We got to talk more about, monks and everything like that, and then a bad ending. So, yeah. So anyway, we go into the factory and they decide, hey, we're gonna go restart it up. We're gonna start the factory back up and we're gonna finish it. Okay. Why did it take 20,000 years to get to this point of the city, and did it just stop? If it went this far and did all this, then theoretically it should have finished itself. But it didn't. And now, in the span of like a day, the city finishes itself because they were like, we told the city, hey, finish yourself. And it did. Okay, okay. I don't know why you decided suddenly that it took you 20,000 years to get this far, but in the span of one day, you can finish the city because somebody told you to. I don't get it. Shouldn't. Okay. So anyway, now we're back, and they're like, we've got these robotic things that like they're like basically like mech suits that we can get inside of, and we're going to use them to draw Godzilla into this little trench thing. And whenever we come down the trench with Godzilla, then we're going to capture him with the nano metal, and then we're going to shoot him and kill him. Okay, uh, sounds good. Let's do it. So, as always, Mechagodzilla usually being controlled by somebody that's not good. That's the case. We find out the big burly guys are actually they're gonna kill us all. They're actually we find out that they might um, turn bad after we defeat Godzilla, and they use Mechagodzilla to kill all of the everybody else, and to like rule the planet. Hear me out. And I get it that this is supposed to be a message about whenever one power is defeated, there's another that takes its place. I get it. Godzilla cannot be controlled at all. You had to leave the planet because Godzilla was so bad. And now you have an opportunity. Whether they have bad intentions or not, they have shown you for at least 20 years they are fine with your existence. Godzilla was not fine with your existence on this planet. He killed your people almost to extinction, to the point you had to leave the planet. And now you were given an opportunity to, be able to flourish. Yes, you're going to exist with Mechagodzilla. Maybe that's a bad thing. It probably is. But is that worse than your current situation? In my opinion, no. But I get what they're going for here. It's the problem of not fleshing out anything. You have 3 Godzilla movies here, and somehow it's less fleshed out than movies that are single films. Shin Godzilla is much more fleshed out, and we have 1 movie to get to know him. We have 3 movies to get to know this Godzilla. We're 2 in, and we don't really know anything about this Godzilla other than he's been here for 20,000 years and he's big now. It's a boring Godzilla because for 90% of this movie, we're just talking about, hey, we're gonna go get Mechagodzilla and he's gonna defeat Godzilla. Okay, we'll do it. Stop talking about it. In my opinion, this film is the worst offender of this. The other 2 are not as bad, but they're both guilty of it. But this film, we spend 90% of the runtime just talking about, hey, we're going to go defeat Godzilla with Mechagodzilla. And they're building up the facility. We're talking about, we're going to use these mechs. And we're going to go do it. And we don't even see Godzilla for 90% of this movie. Or if we do, he's just walking. And it's like, okay, do something. So finally, we get to the point where we're actually doing something in this film. And Mechagodzilla, or the Mechagodzilla City now, we've found out that these big burly guys, their plan is actually to get into these little pods and they will get absorbed by the nanometal, and somehow that helps. Don't know how, other than if they just want to sacrifice themselves to Mecha Godzilla. What do you have to offer that that they didn't already have? Like, does Mecha Godzilla need a soul? So anyway, this is where they're all like, "What's this is bad," because they're sacrificing themselves into these little pods. Um, and so anyway, we get Godzilla going down the little trench. We're doing the little mech things flying around everywhere, and then they find out that it's not really working. There's problems to where it ain't gonna work, and then they're all kind of turning, everybody's going back and forth, like, oh, should we do it? Should we not? And so now they're like, we're gonna have to use these suits, and we're gonna fly up real high and come down, and like all three of them will hit Godzilla at the same time, and that'll work the same way the gun was gonna work, and will kill him. Okay, so with that, the Mecha God or like the Godzilla, it's so the nanometal starts to absorb the girl that he kind of had a crush on. They kissed earlier in the movie. It's for one scene. Really didn't play a role in it, so I didn't mention it because I'd be here all day if I mentioned all that. But anyway, so she starts to get absorbed, and when that happens, suddenly he cares about her, and he's like, "We can't do it," and he grabs her, and they fly away. And then the main burly guy that was flying with, or the one of the burly guys that was flying with him, he dies, and now they fly away. Mecha Godzilla City thing blows up. They're gone now, and Godzilla gets away. So, not to mention, because there's been enough that we've talked about enough for the last hour and a half in this movie, and then we have the battle, which the battle is the most interesting part. It's fairly well done, but then, so throughout this runtime, we have all of these different races, factions, everything, deciding their own personal goals. And we get to the end, and basically now, with the burly guys gone, it's time for the next race to pop up and to say, this is my ultimate plan to defeat Godzilla. And it's the monk people. So the monk people come in, and they're like, guess what? Our God that we've been, believing in this whole time, it's actually Ghidorah. And, you think, okay, that's going to be really cool. I'm excited to see that, because Ghidorah, or King Ghidorah, and Godzilla, that's a really good matchup. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, that's a really good one. But King Ghidorah and Godzilla, that's even better most of the time. So, let's go check that out. So now, we have movie 3, The Planet Eater. The idea of making Ghidorah this multi-dimensional being that can go through these black holes and comes in to eat things like Godzilla and the planet itself is really interesting. Because, yes, Godzilla's only trait in this 3-film series is he's bigger and he caused the Earth to change. There's nothing else unique about him. His atomic breath is more of like a big shockwave. It's, he's got an atomic breath, but it's not interesting. There's nothing really unique about it. It's no different than just like Shin Godzilla has got an interesting atomic breath. -1 Godzilla got a really cool atomic breath. You are dealing with anime Godzilla. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about CGI. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just do it. Draw it, you can do it. Somehow it's boring with Godzilla. but somehow they made a really, really interesting King Ghidorah. And so when we get to the fight, you'd think this is going to be epic because you have this King Ghidorah that's 5, 6 times the size of Godzilla, and then you have a Godzilla that's massive, which one of his downfalls for being so massive is that whenever humans get up next to him, they're completely, he can just step on them. So it's like, it doesn't even, you can't have good battles because he's too big. But when you have a creature this big going up a creature this big, you can do whatever you want with them. Somehow it's still boring because all they do is just like King Ghidorah flies around him and then like bites onto him, and then that's it. Yeah. So let's go back and talk about some of the build up to this because there's not a lot, to be honest. The girl that he had the crush on now apparently, and that he was really invested in, even though he had like 3 conversations with her that were meaningful throughout the last 2 films, and now he acts like he is heartbroken because this happened. She is like brain dead pretty much because of this nanometal, which didn't affect him because of the bug people. Apparently, they had this like magical dust that they put inside him, and he then becomes like immune to this nanometal. Okay. So she's brain dead. So they kissed in the last movie. So what does he do? Well, he goes out, and there's these 2 bug girls that are twins, and he decides, hey, main girl's gone. I gotta have a waifu somehow. So the bug girl takes off all her clothes, and they do things. Why we needed that? I don't know. It's there though. Bug waifus. I guess you gotta have that in anime. So the crazy monk guy is like planning to bring King Ghidorah here, and then it's a problem whenever he does. I don't care at this point. Like, even watching it, by the time I got here, yes, it was cool, the idea of what I was about to see, but I was not thinking, this is going to be epic. This is going to change my opinion on the entire series. What I was thinking was, this trilogy has been garbage. And people told me, this final battle is really cool. So I'm like, it's garbage, but it's got a really cool fight at the end. To my surprise, once again, he flies around him, he bites Godzilla, and then Godzilla waves his arm through and finds out that he can't actually touch King Ghidorah. So he's just biting him, and nothing else is happening. So they find the monk, and they are able to figure it out to where they can get King Ghidorah to not be invulnerable now. And Godzilla kills him and saves the day. And like, the monk was trying to convince the main character that, like, hey, the world needs to die. What are you doing, dude? Like, I get that this dude just destroyed his planet again because he let Mechagodzilla die, but now you're trying to convince him, hey, you obviously don't care about the planet because you let Godzilla live, so now let's just kill it more. Why not? I don't get any of the character motivations here, and I don't know why the main character is so divided between all of them, because all of them had their own selfish gains, and all he wants is to kill Godzilla. He's had multiple attempts to, and every time he doesn't. I know I skimmed over this last film, because, to be honest, there's nothing here. Like, yes, the bug people that he mates with, it's pretty much it is confirmed that they're with Mothra. Nothing happens with Mothra. We don't see Mothra, except for like a very brief frame. And I don't even think we see like an outline of it. It's just like it's like a silhouette of it, and that's it. But that's all. And King Ghidorah is boring. Once again, Mechagodzilla was never Mechagodzilla. It was a city that was made of nanometal that is not interesting. It has no interesting qualities at all other than, hey, we can do whatever we want with it. You know how, tangent, you know how in Iron Man, MCU, that we have this really cool thing with Iron Man where he's like mechanical and we see the parts of his suit like work, and it's really cool until we get to where he makes the nanometal, and it just is like, you know, I'm gonna make a new arm and I can make a big point and everything, and then he can stab people with it and everything. Yes, that's cool in concept, but in reality it's boring, and now they've used that to like make where all the characters can just like button helmet. It's not like I'm going to put my helmet on. It's just like button, helmet. That's the nanometal in this movie. There's nothing interesting about it because it's just liquid that has no. It's just boring. So now that King Ghidorah's gone, they go back and they go with the bug people, and they've been here for a few years now. And now he has a kid with the bug people, I think. I think. I don't know. It's not like there's kids there. I know that he did naughty with the bug people. So I assume he has a kid with them. I don't know. But anyway, uh, his ex is still sitting in the freezer back in the back with her nanometal. Um, and then one of the other guys that's a side character that has no real impact on the film at all until now. He's like, hey, guess what? I took some of your ex-girlfriends. I went and I kind of like peeled off some of her skin that's got that nanometal on it, and we can use that and we can do stuff with it. You know, we can go defeat Godzilla with it. And he's like, oh no, Mechagodzilla could come back, and it's showing that people are going to make the same mistakes. So even though that my waifu girlfriend is, dead anyway, and I had something to live for now because I think he had a kid with the bug waifu. Um, he decides to fly the mech that he was in and take his the girlfriend that's now Nanomel. He decides to take her and fly to Godzilla and let Godzilla atomic breath both of them and kill both of them and destroy the nanometal. Okay. Okay. I'm hearing you out. In theory, in theory, you had a whole city that was nanometal. And if there is any of it left, I know a lot of it was destroyed, but it's supposed to be incredibly resilient. If any of it's left, what is stopping him? This guy that wanted to go get this. What is stopping him from, after you go and suicide bomb yourself into Godzilla? What's stopping him from just going and getting ore? You didn't do anything. I get it. They're like, oh, this is like high-tech stuff in this, mech thing. What's to say it doesn't happen again? And guess what? Godzilla is still there. So this whole trilogy, Godzilla has done nothing other than he woke up when he killed his son, which is never mentioned again. He gets up, he walks around for a little bit, then he gets shot at, so he walks down a trench, and he's thinking, oh, I guess I'm dying because I'm weak. I'm burning here. I'm dying. And then all of a sudden, the main characters shoot at one another, and he's like, okay, I guess I'm not dying today. And then he walks on a little bit further. Then some big worm comes out of the sky, comes down, bites him. He's like, oh, dang, that's not good. But then all of a sudden, the main characters start shooting at one another again, and he's like, oh, I can grab the worm. And then he shoots the hole in the sky, and he's like, okay, yes, that's done. And then 20, 30 years later, hey, one of those little mech things is coming at me. Poof. Okay. Well, moving on with my day. Godzilla is nothing. Godzilla makes no, like, decisions of his own. In this whole trilogy, he doesn't. He doesn't care. He probably doesn't even realize they're there. I have skipped over quite a bit because if I talked for all three of these films, I'd be here for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I'm not going to do that. But just know there is probably 30 other characters that I never even mentioned because they are so irrelevant to this plot, they don't matter. Mothra did not matter at all. Take Mothra out of this equation, this movie doesn't change at all. Mechagodzilla City, it didn't have to be Mechagodzilla. It could have just been Nanometal, but because it's a Godzilla movie, you wanted to call it Mechagodzilla because that sells tickets. Or it sells streaming services because this is Netflix. King Ghidorah is the only interesting part of this whole trilogy, and all you can do with it is have big floating heads that come out of the sky with big long necks that just bite him, and then all of a sudden, because of actions not mattering to Godzilla or King Ghidorah, he can be defeated now, and Godzilla quickly defeats him. It is not a fact of this King Ghidorah is still a match for Godzilla, even if he could be touched. It is as soon as he can be touched, Godzilla wins. Oh gosh, this hurts my head. Godzilla is not a perfect character in terms of how, like, his movies have been great. They're not. Even the best Godzilla movies have issues, but they all are unique in a way that Godzilla feels unique. The villains feel unique. Even the human characters not always are necessarily compelling, but you can at least say, well, they're likable in some ways. The human characters here are not likable. The opponents for Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, Mothra, two of them that do actually appear, are not interesting in ways that go beyond, hey, that's an interesting concept, but in execution, it's completely botched. I personally cannot think of really anything that is redeemable that this trilogy did at all. I just can't. It's such wasted potential because a Godzilla anime could be so cool. Like, imagine a Godzilla that is able to be, you're not restrained by a suit, you're not restrained by CGI that is, you have to do a cheaper budget. Legendary has made this really cool Godzilla. Even then, you're dealing with insane budgets because it's live action. By being anime, you can be whatever you want. And you can do so many cool things. The Godzilla that you want him to jump, you want him to, grab onto stuff and fight and everything, you can do that. But instead, you make a Godzilla trilogy to where Godzilla only walks around, very slowly grabs on to King Ghidorah. If this is any faster than what he actually does, I'd be surprised. And I know he's big, and I know he's traveling probably hundreds of feet at that, every second of that. But this is boring. It's Godzilla. I don't want to see him doing this. I want to see him grab King Ghidorah and yank on that dude. I want to see him pull his whole body out of them portals and beat him up. I want to see them fly across continents. Because he's so big, I want him to do that. But we don't get that. Actually, I changed my mind. There is 3 really redeemable parts of this anime trilogy, and that's the ending credit songs. Those are pretty good. I actually enjoyed them. I saved all 3 of them, and I've listened to them quite a bit. I really like Live and Die, the very last one, even though it's the worst movie, The Planet Eater. It's got the best credit song. I replayed that the night of that I watched it, and I definitely have listened to that at least 20 times since I watched that movie. So in the end, I'm not fond of this anime trilogy. I think it's pointless. I don't think we needed it, especially at this quality. The best I've seen people say is that they're not as bad as some people say they are, but that's not saying much. I think that some of the Godzillas that a lot of people hate, this is 54, so nobody hates 54, but I think some of the worst Godzillas, I think you can make an argument, well, they're not as bad as some people think. That doesn't mean they're good. That just means, hey, they're dated. They have some bad effects. Some of the plot lines are kind of goofy. With this, you made it in the late 2010s, 2020s even. You have no real excuse because other anime have done better monster robot battles than this. I don't know what excuse you have. So anyway, basically, go watch Shin Godzilla. Go watch -1. Go watch 54. Go watch anything really that's not this anime trilogy. If you have Netflix and you're like, I want to watch Godzilla movie. Hey, there's an anime trilogy here. Don't watch it. Go watch -1. It's better. And if you don't want to watch that, watch Shin Godzilla. It's hard to find, but watch it. It's a really good one. And it's made by the same guy that made Neon Genesis Evangelion. You'd like it better. And it's probably more anime than this anime trilogy is. There you go. Watch the American Godzilla movies. They are better than the anime trilogy that is made from Japan. Japan made Godzilla, and they can't make a good anime trilogy. So anyway, what is your thoughts on this anime trilogy? Am I kind of being a bit harsh on it? I don't think so, but let me know down below. And anyway, if you enjoyed this, you want to see more Godzilla or anime stuff, as you can see, I have a few Godzilla stuff, I have quite a bit of anime stuff, so let me know, and I will make more very, very soon. We make unboxings, we make a bunch of stuff like that, and like I said, we do have a Godzilla movie, saga review that I'm working on that will be coming out probably at the beginning of the year sometime. So stay tuned for that if you are interested in more Godzilla stuff. And if you want to see more Godzilla stuff from me, let me know. I would love to do more on Godzilla. But anyway, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.